In this tutorial, I'm going to be talking a lot about layers and adjustment layers. And so before I dive into the actual tutorial, I just want to do a quick run through of working with layers and the importance of using a non-destructive technique when working in Photoshop. Now, when a lot of photographers are starting out with a Photoshop, they might have the image, and what they'll do is edit directly onto the main image, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's what I did when I first started. The problem with working in this way is if you make a mistake, it's very difficult to go back in steps. There are ways you can do it, but it can be quite dangerous, and you can end up spending a lot of extra time working on the image. I'll just give you an example of that. So say I've got my image here, and maybe like I'll do a quick adjustments. Maybe I'll adjust the brightness and contrast a little bit. Okay, I might want to maybe adjust the saturation. So let's go to hue saturation here. So maybe I'll just increase the saturation a little bit, and maybe I'll adjust the color balance as well. I'll add a little bit of blue and maybe some magenta. All right, so not pretty, but it gives you an idea. And then finally, maybe I might just clone out some of these waves here. So I'm going to directly clone on the image here, and oh, hang on. I've made a mistake and I've gone into the pier. I didn't want to do that. So what can I do? I can panic, or and this is what I used to do, is I've got my history state. I can go back and just click and go back to maybe here. All right, and so now I can keep working on my image. So maybe now I want to, maybe I'll do a bit of burning and dodging. So I'll get my burn tool here, and maybe I want to burn in my clouds a little bit. So burn in the shadows, burn the mountain range a little bit, and maybe I'll get my dodge tool and do a bit of dodging here on the pier and dodge some of the clouds, and it's dodgy editing. All right, so yeah, that's looking all right. And what else can I do? I might adjust. What else can I adjust? Maybe I'll just convert the whole thing to black and white now. All right, so have a play around with that. Okay, and then I'll look at that and I'll go, oh no, I don't like it. I kind of like the image, but I think it was too bright overall. Now, the problem is I like the black and white, but I don't like the fact that it's too bright. So I can come back and adjust my brightness contrast. All right, so I'll go back to here, adjust the contrast, and then I decide that I want to do a bit more cloning. And then I decide that, hang on, I might spend hours cloning out a particular area, only to decide that I think I liked it better as a color image, which means that to get back to my color stage, I've got to come back to here, which means that all of the cloning work that I've just done has been lost. And so there is actually a better way. So let me show you. So I've got my original image here. Here's my layer, what I can do. And if you can't see the layers, you just go down to Window, and the layers palette will come up. So I've got my original file. What I'm going to do is click on the file and duplicate the layer. And so what I've done now is I've got my exact same image, one on top of the other. So it's like having two photos stacked on top of each other. And now I've got my original, and I can make my adjustments onto this next file. So I might do my first adjustment. What was it going to be? It was going to be brightness and contrast. Okay, so I'm going to adjust my brightness, adjust my contrast. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new adjustment layer. And now I can do my color edit. So maybe I want to do color balance, add a little bit of blue, add some magenta. Okay, so now I've got two separate files. If I don't like my color layer, I can turn it off. So you've got the little eye icon and you can toggle on and off. From here, then I can make a new layer and then I can do my cloning. So I can come in and clone out any little spots here, and I now have a cloning layer. And if you want to, just to make life easier, you can name each layer. That's my brightness, that's my color, and that you keep track of everything. And this was my cloning layer. All right, and then on top of that, I can make a new layer and I can do my black and white adjustment here, do a bit of tweaking. All right, so, and this layer here has all the adjustments on it, including the cloning, it's got the color and it's got the brightness. And then maybe on top of that, I might want to do an extra bit of cloning. I might want to come in and clone this area here. And then if I decide, hang on a minute, I don't like it as a black and white, I can basically just come in, remove those, get rid of them all together, and make a new layer and do a different kind of adjustment. So let's say I wanted to do black and white, but I wanted a different look to my black and white. All right, so I can say something like that, and I'm happy with that. The problem with this is, if let's just say that overall it was this layer that I didn't like, I have to maybe remove this one, but the brightness adjustment has followed on into all the layers. So it's a little bit better than working directly onto the one layer, but it's still not ideal. But there is a better way. There is a way that you can edit your images in Photoshop that's non-destructive, that allows you to have each of these adjustments that you can go back into and adjust each individual layer individually without it affecting the other layers. And it's a much safer way, and I think far less time consuming, and it's something that you can then turn around and save all of the different layers and save the entire file. And if in like 6 months down the track you want to come back to it and you like all the cloning work that you've done, but you've seen a new technique that is going to be a better way for you to show this image, or you don't want to have it as a black and white and you just want to remove the black and white layer, you can. And I think it's a far superior way for you to edit your images. All right, so I'm back to my original file here, and I want to show you a much better way of editing with Photoshop that's actually non-destructive, and that you can go back and edit individual layers. So what I've got, here's my original image. Now, in the first example, I went down to adjust each image. I went up to image, adjust, and I had my selection of adjustments located here. All right, and so that's how I edited each individual layer. If you go back and look in the layers palette, there's a little icon down the bottom. It's a circle with a half dark, half light. If you click on that and have a look, you can see that most of the adjustments are also located in this palette. The difference with doing it in this way is it's actually non-destructive. So let me show you how. So let's say I'm going to go back and do some similar adjustments. So I've just now selected the brightness contrast. So I come up and I've got my adjustment layer icon there, the half white, half black circle there. And in the properties, the adjustment sliders come up, so I can adjust my brightness and I can adjust my contrast. And I'm going to now find, and I'll do another adjustment layer. Let's say I do the color again, so I'm doing my blue and a little bit of magenta, and I might do another one. I might do let's say I do a curves. And let's just say I want to just make that all a little bit darker. All right, so there's my 3 adjustments. Now, let's just say I'm looking at that image and I want to now go back and edit the brightness contrast. I can, just by clicking on that. This one, I can come back, I get my properties, and I can make it brighter, or I can individually adjust each layer. So let's just say I'm not happy with my color balance. I can come in and I can tweak that. So maybe I want to add more yellow this time and bring in a little bit of red and make it a bit of a rustier image. And now I'm happier with that. And then I'm looking at my curves and thinking, oh, I think I've gone too far. I might go back the other way and just make it not as dark, or maybe just make it a bit more matte, or whatever. I can individually adjust each layer. It gets better. So what you've got now is layer masks that you can work with. And if I click on any of these layer masks, this white square, and it's highlighted, I can come in and I can remove part of the adjustment that I've done. So let's say with the color balance, I really like the color that has been added to the sky, but I don't like what it's done to the water. I can actually remove the color with a brush. I can paint with black and I can remove that color back to the original. So I'm just painting with a brush and I'm just painting over that area, and it's removing that part of the water, and I'm getting my original image back. All right. And you can see on the layer mask, the area that I've painted in black, it's making the original file appear. All right. And so let's say that I'm happily brushing away and I've gone too far and I've gone into the sky and I want to bring that back. I can just paint with white and bring that color back. So I can make anything appear and disappear in each of the layer masks. And so now I can, if I think, oh no, but actually I really like the water the way I had it colored, I can bring it back. I can do the same with brightness and contrast. So I really liked what the brightness did for the water, but I don't like what it did for the clouds. So again, I can paint with black and I can bring the original tone back to my image. So I can brush back in, and maybe I can, if I want to get rid of the color balance, I can do the same, and then I'm coming back to my original image. All right, and I can also do the same with curves where I've darkened it. Maybe I want to just lighten it, so I'm brushing on the area and it's only affecting the curves adjustment. I'm keeping the color, but I'm adjusting the curves. Again, if I don't like it, I can come back and correct my mistake. All right, and I've got my original color. If I want to come back to the color and I want to now brush back the color that I had on the clouds, I can bring that back. Now, if this is your first time hearing about layers and adjustment layers and layers masks, and you're finding this a bit confusing, don't worry. Sometimes it takes a few goes, but I think once you start playing around with this, you'll find it a lot easier to understand. And believe me, it'll make your workflow a lot simpler, and also the type of retouching you can do using these techniques is so much more advanced than anything you're going to be able to do in Lightroom. So persevere, it does get easier. But what I've got on the screen now is an image that hopefully will help you understand the whole concept of adjustment layers. So I've deliberately created this high contrast image. So I've got blue background with yellow polka dots. So let's say I want to create a new adjustment layer here. And what I want to do is I'm going to adjust the hue saturation. All right, so there's my hue saturation adjustment layer, and down the side here are my properties. What I'm going to do is I'm going to change the hue so that I now have, instead of yellow dots on a blue background, I've created green dots on a magenta background. So that's my adjustment layer. Now, to show you what is possible, so I've made my adjustment, and let's say that I only want to have this adjustment affect part of my image. So if I come in and I change my foreground color, so there's this little arrow here, and the foreground color is the box on the top. I've got my brush selected. I can now come in and my mask is selected. It's got the black lines around it. Wherever I paint with black now is going to remove the adjustment and reveal the original file. So I'm painting with black and I'm getting my original file back. So wherever I'm painting with black reveals the original file and the original color. Okay. If I want to bring back the adjustment, I flick it around and I paint with white, and that brings back the adjustment. And I can do this till the cows come home, switching color back to black, white. So that's the non-destructive nature of this type of editing. And using these type of adjustment layers is fantastic for retouching images in Photoshop. There's a lot of different ways that I use adjustment layers and layer masks, because it helps when I'm sharpening images, when I'm just wanting to add tone to certain areas of my image. And this technique is brilliant. Now, there's one more thing that I want to show you, and that is when I create a new adjustment layer like the one I've created, I can actually, and let's just say that I wanted to create the adjustment layer, but I only wanted to recolor, say, a few of these areas, not the whole lot. What I can do is I can actually, with the layer mask selected, if I invert it by hitting Command I, it hides it. So it's still there, but it's hidden, and now I'm only seeing the original file. What I can then do is come in and paint with white, and I can now add the adjustment to selective areas rather than having to remove it. again, this is handy, and you'll see me doing this in this next tutorial. So it's basically the opposite of what I did originally. I inverted the mask, and you can see now that I'm revealing the adjustment by painting with white. If I then want to go back and remove the adjustments, I then paint with black, and it makes them disappear. And so you'll see me using this technique for a lot of the retouching tutorials. Okay, so to bring them in, I'm painting with white, and that's revealing the adjustment. So I can now have magenta circles, change those to green, and if I want to remove them, I paint with black, and you'll see exactly what's going on in the actual adjustment mask. Back to white. Wherever I hit white, it shows the adjustment. All right, if I Command I, I've now got a the adjustment the adjustment layer is now visible, and if I paint with black, it shows the original color, and if I paint with white, it shows the adjustment. All right, and going back the other way, Command I, I've hidden it. Command I reveals it. So if it's white, the adjustment shows. If the layer mask is black, the adjustment is hidden. If the layer mask is white, I paint with black to reveal the layer underneath. If the mask is black, I paint with white to reveal the adjustment. So when the mask is black, it hides the adjustment layer. When the mask is white, it reveals the adjustment layer. All right, so let's have a look at a real-world portrait example of working with adjustment layers. So I've got on the screen an image of Pugsley. Now, what I want to do is bring in some more detail into the hair. It's a bit heavy in the eyes. I want to bring in more detail in the beard, but I kind of like what's going on in the background. So again, if I was to edit this in a destructive way, I could adjust the brightness, contrast. As soon as I adjust the brightness, I don't like what's happening in here. The side of his face is blown out, and the background, I don't like what's happening there. I could come in and get the dodge tool and just come in and maybe carefully dodge around there. Kind of all right, but still not ideal. And it's going to take me ages anyway, so I don't like that particularly. So what I want to do is, and if I was to go ahead and do a curves adjustment, again, same issue. It looks great overall, except for the fact that the highlight on camera right is blown out when I get a good skin tone. Camera left, and I get some nice detail in his hair, but I don't like what it's doing to the background. So I actually want to selectively adjust this part of the image. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a curves adjustment layer to this. And what I want to do is just brighten it up until I'm happy with how the hair is looking and how the skin tones. I've got like lots of detail in the hair, and I don't mind the skin tone there. All right, so I'm happy with that. With my curves adjustment selected, I can then come in and because it's an adjustment layer, I got the area. I've got an adjustment mask here. The adjustment mask is selected. I can come in now, select a brush, and for this sort of work, I want to make sure that my hardness is down, and I'm going to work with a nice big soft brush, basically. All right, and then I want to actually control the adjustment that I'm doing. So I'm going to have my opacity set to 100%, but I'm going to bring my flow right down to about 11. And basically, there's two ways I can do this. So I've got my adjustment revealed, which is the first way. I'm going to paint with black, and that's going to remove the areas that I don't want to be that I don't want the adjustment to affect. So that's the background. All right, most of his shirt, parts of his beard. And what happens is every time I apply the adjustment, it gets darker because I've got my opacity set to 100. So it actually builds up as I keep brushing. All right, so I'm doing it that way. And then I can come back and go to white and come into the hair and reveal more, because I want to brush in areas of his hair and bring in more detail in the shadows. And I can come in and do the same for the eyes. All right, and the other eye, maybe bring in his eyebrows. So that's doing it that way. All right, so, and it's not bad. And then I might come and just knock that back. I think I've gone too far. I like the highlight, so I want to bring that back. All right, still, that's a bit clunky because it was pretty much only a small area that I wanted to adjust. So I think the better way to do that is, let me just come back to my curves adjustment layer, is here's my adjustment. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide it by hitting Command I. So now it's hidden. The adjustment is still there. And I can now brush on the areas that I want to take effect. So if I come in and brush with white, I've got the skin tone that I really like on this side of the face. And I just want to brush in some detail. I like how the wall looks in the original image, so I want to keep that. I just want to brush in some detail into the beard, to the mustache, and maybe with a big brush, I just want to lighten this side of the face a little bit, so I can give that a tweak. And then I can come in, work on the beard, bring in the hair. All right, and we can see exactly where I'm working in the mask. So we had before and after. So that's just a really good way of working with a layer mask, having it hidden. So Command I, which disguises it, and then just bringing back the areas that we want to bring in. And now I can come in and work on the eyes and just bring in a bit of detail there. Come in on the eyebrows. All right. And I've rescued the hair. Now, this part of the hair, I could maybe bring in more detail if I wanted to. So I can actually now come in and create a new curves adjustment layer. All right, just to bring out all this extra detail in here. All right, and again, Command I hide it. And now I can come in with a big brush if I want to and just brush in a whole lot more detail if I wanted to. And if I don't like it, I can knock it back. And wherever I've made mistakes, I can come in. And if some of this is a bit over the top, I can come in and get rid of those mistakes as well. And I can just flick from one to the other. Okay. Another area that's really good to use this type of adjustment mask. So what I'm going to do is I'm now going to put all of my adjustments up onto a new layer. So it's Command, Option, Shift, E. And I've got a new layer. And that's got the new adjustments on it here. What I'm going to do now is I want to sharpen this image, but I don't want to sharpen his skin tone. I just want to sharpen his beard. So what I'm going to do now is go to Filter, Sharpen, Unsharp Mask. Give it a good sharpen. Let's have a look. So we get some good detail there. All right, so that's without. Bringing out the detail in his beard, all right? And it's bringing out all the little eyelashes. And the detail in the eyebrows there. I like what it's done to the hair. I don't love what it's done to the skin. So I can now make that a new, add a layer mask to this image here. So next to the adjustment layer, there's layer mask or vector mask. So now I'm working on the mask. I can Command I, hide it. And now with my black brush, I can come in because it's now hidden. All right, the sharpening that I've applied is now hidden. I've got my layer mask selected. If I come in now with a brush, white brush, I brush that on, I'm now revealing the sharpening. And so this is a way to do selective sharpening on an image. So maybe I just want to sharpen the beard, the mustache, parts of the hair, and you can see where the areas are white, it's revealing the mask, and I can just do selective sharpening. So that's a really good way to sharpen images in Photoshop. So you've got the selective adjustment layer will create a layer mask for you, or you can add a mask by clicking on this icon here, which is a rectangle with a circle. So any adjustment that you do, you can add a layer mask. So let me just show you another way. Let's say his skin tone, I kind of like it, but I think I'd like to soften it. Parts of the image, I want to maybe blur out the shirt a little bit. So let me go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and I'm going to blur out part of the image, say about there. Okay. All right, now the whole image is blurred. I can add a layer mask to that, and I can hide it, Command I, so it's now disappeared, and I can come back in with my brush, and wherever I brush with white is going to reveal the adjustment underneath. So I can blur his shirt a little bit more if I want to. All right. So that's a few ways to work with layers and layer masks in a non-destructive way in Photoshop. What I suggest you do is, as soon as you have a chance after watching this video, is dig out any file, perhaps a portrait file, and load it up into Photoshop and just start having a play around with the adjustment layers to start with, and work with the adjustment layer as white where it's revealed, and then have a play around with the make an adjustment. So you might make a curves or a color saturation adjustment, and then play around with the white and black brush and painting on the adjustments, and then have a go at inverting that layer. And then you might want to experiment with sharpening or blurring an image, and just so that you get your head around working with the adjustments and making sure that the right selection is made. It is a little bit confusing at first, but within no time, if you keep doing this regularly, it'll just become second nature. And as I said at the start of this video, this will take your images to the next level, and your ability to retouch and create really cool edits with your image so much better than what you can achieve in Lightroom. So well worth experimenting with.